In the early mornings, the young man stared out into the bright, gray sky of the sleeping New York City, and he wondered how things had gotten so complicated. Now, he was a methodical, analytical young man who really liked to understand the basis of a thing. Yet, somehow, he was not able to clearly see how he had gotten puncture wounds from the fight before. He once had been so good at diffusing a situation, and all of a sudden he had been overcome with shell-shock fear. A revelation that there was something off about the home he stood in. In fact, he started to realize he did not feel like he was home at all. He became quite quiet, was the murmur among those that he used to be quite close to. He was becoming quite distant, and it was very off-putting for the house. The fact that he was not able to associate as he once did. They had once relied on him for stability, and now he was unable to maintain this stability because the gentleman would stare off into space for long periods of time, disconnected from the world. But there was something brooding below the surface of the young man's eyes. And while many pushed and prodded him to open up about it, it wasn't that he didn't want to open up about it. He just didn't know how. Because if one traveled past the eyes that they saw of him, they would see the crevices deep within his soul. The parts of himself that no one could quite reach. Some could say this young man was a mystery, but no. This young man was looking for a way to run wild and run free. And deep down, he felt constrained. He felt locked in a box. He felt as if it would be impossible to get out of the grind. His body was so used to doing things a certain way that he wondered what his body would feel like if he took a moment to pause and breathe. He didn't feel as if he could express this to others because they relied on him to continuously churn the meal. But there was a deep longing in him to simply run free, unseen by the world. And so he figured if he'd gotten this far, with being able to keep things hush-hush about how he felt, he could find his own unique escape, perhaps, away from the eyes of those who were the reason for his forest full of tears. He had never known pain so great as being with these, and even though they went above and beyond to make it seem as if they had his best interest, something was not lining up. So he was aware that it was time to break free. Something pulled in his chest. Something called out to him. Something roared like a lion from deep beneath the gut of his belly. and he had to answer the call. It was as if a baby was growing inside him, and whether he wanted to have the baby or not, the baby was going to come. So what could he do? He decided to do the unthinkable. He said, I'm not coming back here anymore. I don't have to. But he didn't tell them. And that day, he decided not to come back. He even cut his phone off and became a nomad. And some treat him as a ghost. They say he was here one day and then he was gone. We do not understand. But yet some swear they've seen him pass. Some swear they've seen his jacket float by in the streets of the winter city of New York. Some swear they've smelt his cologne. But it's really not easy to pick up on this one, you see, because when this one leaves, not a trace. And one might be imagining smelling his cologne. One might simply be imagining seeing his coat float with the wind. One might even imagine having a conversation with him again without ever actually experiencing him. But what does remain true is those who spoke ill of him will never remain the same. In fact, there's quite a fondness that's grown about him since he's been gone. A deep fondness that is heartbreaking for those who've lost him.